Uh, the month of September is National Suicide Prevention Month, and National Suicide Prevention Week begins on Sunday and runs through next weekend. Suicide is something that affects all corners of our community, and that includes those that we rely on to be beacons of strength and beacons of safety in our community, our first responders, including our firefighters. And there is a campaign across fire departments all throughout the state of Michigan, as well as others across the nation, aimed at preventing suicide within the rank and file of our fire departments, but also supporting those struggling with their mental health in our local community. Joining us now on the program is the chief of the West Bloomfield Township Fire Department, Greg Flynn, who is also one of the greatest advocates for the Yellow Rose campaign, which is the topic of conversation today. Chief, thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Tyler, good morning. Good to be with you.
Yeah, good to have you with us also to talk about this, because it's a really important topic of conversation, because for those that are first responders, or those that know first responders, they know that it's a very unique life that you and other firefighters and EMTs and paramedics live, that our police also live, seeing people in the community at their best sometimes, but often at their worst, and that can take a toll on our first responders. And mental health struggles are not uncommon amongst the ranks, and unfortunately, suicide rates among firefighters have been on the rise in recent years, leading to a campaign like the Yellow Rose campaign to bring light to this issue and help to address mental health within our firefighters in our community and communities across the state of Michigan. So as we get going on this, tell us about the Yellow Rose campaign and what the aim of this task force and of this organization is.
Well, it really stems back to an experience that we had as so many fire chiefs and fire departments and firefighters losing their coworkers across this state, to Lieutenant Jeff Hiltner, who was set to retire here from the West Bloomfield Fire Department when he died by suicide back in 2016. So those personal experiences are and can be a catalyst for action. And that really started some conversations professionally for me with other fire chiefs that had also lost firefighters to death by suicide. And from that, the campaign was born. And the main purpose for the Yellow Rose campaign, Tyler, is to change one attitude at a time and let people know that they're valuable as part of our organization. They're what makes us successful. Our firefighters, our paramedics are really the foundation of what we do. They're the face in the community of the fire service. And we want them to know that there are services available through our employee assistance program, and there is no stigma associated with leveraging those services for yourself, for your family, because we understand that the job brings some stress, but we know we're not terminally unique. We're not unique in the way that managing a family, a loved one that's struggling with addiction, relationships with a significant other. Those things happen to you whether you're a school teacher or an engineer or a doctor or a firefighter. And so we try to normalize the conversation around emotional health and wellness. And September is just a great way to take that spotlight and really shine it on this awareness campaign, suicide prevention and awareness.
Yeah, across the community in a variety of sectors, both from civilians and those that are first responders, conversations around mental health, the reduction of that stigma that's surrounded mental health issues and concerns for a number of years has been reducing. But I would imagine in fire departments, because of the stigma that's been there within the fire departments, on top of in the greater community, that this has to start from changing that culture surrounding mental health struggles. And so for departments like West Bloomfield and others that are involved with the Yellow Rose campaign, how have you started to move that forward to open the door for these conversations and bring this up as a real legitimate issue that affects many of the rank and file across our first responder community?
Culture change in itself, research will tell us, can take anywhere from 8 to 10 years or more to actually start to show evidence that that change has become sticky. It's part of the culture. So when you look at the components that influence culture, if we really drill down into it, the campaign decided was attitudes start to influence that day-to-day operation. Attitudes can change by seconds, by minutes, and individuals are in control of attitude. When you look at culture, Tyler, it's big. That's the whole organization. That's decades of ways of doing things that everyone just kind of keeps doing it that way because that's how we've always done it. So to unseat that and replace it with something new, something that is at times for some maybe a little bit uncomfortable, to talk about things that have typically been kind of outside the scope of what we talk around the kitchen table in an engine house or at the back of a piece of apparatus that I'm surrounded by here at Fire Station 5. But again, I want to underscore that in our community, people are struggling with this across the board, Tyler. We know that our college students that have all just headed back to school, they too are at high risk while they're a freshman on campus and struggling to find their way, that this can increase risk. So all of these things play into it. And we see that as we respond to emergencies. But back to the Yellow Rose campaign, we need to be able to respond to our own and those that are to the right and left of us as we go in on a hose line or as we treat someone on a medical, to know that they may need a little bit of assistance. And the Yellow Rose campaign is saying it's okay to get that help. I'm not judging. I have no stigma. You're not in trouble because you asked to talk to a mental health professional. And that's what's important. The Yellow Rose isn't the solution. The Yellow Rose is that assurance that it's okay. And thank you for taking care of yourself.
And it's important, as we're joined by Chief Greg Flynn from the West Bloomfield Township Fire Department, talking about the Yellow Rose campaign and supporting the mental health needs of our first responders and of those in our communities, that we do that in a way that is sensitive to the feelings that they're having, to their mental state at any given time, and really going at their own pace, which is why it's important to have resources and services available in our local departments and beyond our local departments for these firefighters and paramedics to turn to in the case of our local fire departments. And you mentioned a little bit about the resources available within West Bloomfield, but on a broader scale across fire departments in southeastern Michigan, across the state of Michigan, those involved in this campaign, what sort of resources or services are available that firefighters and paramedics or their families can maybe tap into to help address these issues firefighter to firefighter?
Well, within many departments now across the state, there are peer support services, and the International Association of Firefighters has programming that is really a great standard for departments that are looking for that first step to setting up a peer support team. There's many active ones here. There's an active Southeast Michigan one. There's one that I'm familiar with out of the Lansing area, the Capital Region. And they're really defining and setting the standards for what right looks like for peer support. So peer support's that first step, Tyler, that is, hey, it's an acknowledgement that I hear you, and I'm going to help direct you to more of those professional resources that can get you additional help. It's important to realize that at that point, as an employer, right, as the township, as the city, as the local government, that there are resources then that kick in through the HR, the human resources component of it, where they can visit with a mental health professional and really be put on a path for treatment and therapy. And from there, Tyler, that's kind of the deep end of the swimming pool for me. That's where the professionals really take over and get those folks on a path to wellness. We have to change the stigma that this is a permanent state and that this is treatable like so many other things, whether my blood sugar is out of control or my cholesterol is a little high. We have therapies that we can regulate and bring back a quality of life for everyone to enjoy while they're at work and while they're away from work, which is very important.
You can learn more information about the Yellow Rose campaign by visiting their website at yellowrosecampaign.com. Yellowrosecampaign.com is the place to go for more information. Joining us on the program today is the chief of the West Bloomfield Township Fire Department, Greg Flynn. And Greg, as we talk about mental health and we talk about creating that supportive community, partnership plays a huge role in that, whether it is partnership within your individual firehouse, within the entirety of your department, but also between firefighters across the communities. So as the Yellow Rose campaign and departments like yours and others across the state of Michigan continue to push forth with this effort to support mental health, to provide those resources, to provide that safe space for our first responders to address their mental health needs. How does partnership play into expanding this campaign, expanding these resources, and creating that culture, as you mentioned, of supporting one another on the job and beyond the job?
You've done a great job of framing the issue today, Tyler, and what a great way to tie it all together when we talk about it taking a village to create that outcome. So from the fire service perspective, we need our partners in our labor groups, the Michigan Professional Firefighters Union, the International Association of Firefighters, the Michigan the Michigan Firefighters Association, all these different groups. We need them to step forward and say, we're on board. We need our local cities, villages, and townships to look at their employee assistance programs, call them, have visits, go to the office, see what the intake process is like, make sure that it's easy to access and that there are quality trained mental health professionals that are there. We need to invite those mental health professionals into engine houses like Fire Station 5, where I am today, and show them the apparatus and have them eat at the kitchen table and get to know what it's like to be a firefighter, paramedic, put them on the ambulance, put them on the fire truck, and have them ride backwards responding to a call. Those are things that are going to be valuable, and they're actionable, and they're measurable steps. We need less talk about what we're going to do, and we need to see that action play out. Another important part to keep in mind here is that it's going to take two to create the outcome for the person that may need some of that, just someone to listen to, someone to hear them. It takes someone raising their hand and saying, I want some help. And often I think we get this idea that a boss or a supervisor is going to be able to impose that. And that's usually a late stage where workplace performance is compromised and we're in a difficult situation. We want to be way in front of that, Tyler, before all those dominoes start to fall. And it takes all of us acknowledging that we all play an important part in that partnership of our shared wellness as a community.
Chief Greg Flynn joins us from the West Bloomfield Township Fire Department. We're talking about the Yellow Rose campaign, a campaign between fire departments across the state of Michigan, including our local fire department, to address mental health concerns of our firefighters and our paramedics in our communities and prevent suicide among the ranks of our first responders and the greater community. And so, Greg, as we kind of tie this all together from the approach from our local fire departments and from fire departments across the state within this campaign, how can people in the general community sort of apply these principles into their day-to-day life, supporting one another out in our communities as well?
I heard it best in a video from a colleague, Mary Van Hout, who lost her brother, who was a firefighter, to death by suicide. And in this short video where they talk about the importance of just a hello, learning to just provide grace in our everyday lives. And when someone might be struggling that we don't understand, when I say someone might be struggling, when someone seems frazzled at work, or they're just off, or we're short with the clerk at the grocery store or in a parking lot, giving some grace and some patience for what we do every single day goes a long way, because the person that we're frustrated with at that given moment, if we can just pause and create a little bit of bandwidth of our own to appreciate that they may have something going on, that short interaction can be a trigger. If it doesn't go well, that trigger could put someone on a path that may not have the outcome that we as a community want to have. So I think that's the takeaway, Tyler, is conversations like what you're having here and you and I are having this morning about normalizing that it's cool to talk about mental health. It's important to talk about it with your kids. They're never too young. There's age appropriateness, sure, but you're never too young to talk about how to process things that we see or that we hear, and having those conversations. I think that's what's going to, as a community, will go a very long way as we unite. I want to leave you with this story, Tyler. I came into work a few years back after we started the campaign, and there were two rose bushes sitting just outside the entrance to fire administration. And I walked in, and a couple minutes went by, and one of the firefighters came down and said, "Chief, I saw some yellow roses on sale at a local nursery, and I'd like permission to plant them out front." I'd like to plant them out front as a beacon, so people see that yellow rose. Those that know, and that's an invitation that if you need help, we may not be able to solve it, we may not be able to fix it, but we will listen, we will be supportive, and we will connect you with resources. And that's when you know you're moving the dial. And that's the value in coming together as a community. That's not one person doing something. That's the collective change in attitude, which changes and starts to modify and refine culture. And I hope someday, Tyler, when I'm gone from here 10 years from now, that this conversation is still going on, because it's a campaign. It doesn't end tomorrow. It doesn't end at the end of the month. Mental health and wellness is a lifestyle, and we need to continue that. And thank you for highlighting it on the Splash today.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much for joining us, Chief.
You bet.